Hello and welcome to this short tutorial on database. In today's session, we'll talk about what database is, we'll take an example and we will create our own database. Use RDBMS. We'll see what RDBMS is. RDBMS stands for Relational Database Management System and MySQL is one such system which is part of RDBMS. So we will also see how to install MySQL and work with MySQL. So before we begin, what is a database? Database, you can call it as a software or it's a systematic collection of data that supports electronic storage and manipulation of information. The database makes data management more efficient, allowing for easy retrieval, insertion, and deletion of data. Or you take Notepad or Word document or Excel. They can also store data. Do we call them database? No, we don't call them database because storage of data is easy, but retrieval of data is difficult. It's not that easy to retrieve a specific data. If you can access all of the data, but if I need to get a specific part of data, it becomes difficult to access or browse through a Word document. So that's why we need a separate software. And one such implementation of database is called as RDBMS, which stands for Relational Database Management System. So it's a type of database management system. So it's a type of DBMS that stores data in a structured format using rows and tables. The relational aspect comes from the ability of tables to be related to each other through unique identifiers. We call them as foreign keys. And we can use SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language, for accessing and manipulating data. So let's dive into RDBMS. If we talk about the key characteristics of RDBMS, these are table-based storage. Data is stored in tables, which are composed of rows and columns. Then second point we see is data normalization. So data normalization is a process organize data to minimize redundancy and improve data integrity. Then we talk about ACID properties, ensures reliable processing of transactions. ACID properties in RDBMS stands for atomicity, consistency, isolation, and durability. Atomicity ensures that a transaction in a database is treated as a single unit which either fully happens or doesn't happen at all. If any part of the transaction fails, the entire transaction is rolled back, ensuring no partial changes are made to the data. Consistency guarantees that a transaction will bring the database from one valid state to another, maintaining all predefined rules and constraints. This means that the database remains consistent before and after the transaction. Isolation ensures that multiple transactions can occur concurrently without leading to the interference of each other's operations. This property prevents transactions from affecting each other, allowing them to operate as if they are the only ones interacting with the database. Durability assures that once a transaction has been committed, it will remain so even in the event of a system failure. This means the changes made by the transactions are permanently recorded and will not be lost even if the system crashes. And the last key feature we talk about use of keys. So we talk about primary and foreign keys, which are used to uniquely identify rows and establish relationship between different tables. So with that concept, let's get into details. Let's not get into details. We will see how to install the software and then create our own data. So I'm going to download and install MySQL database. That's the database that we will use for today's session. So how do you install? In the Google, I'll type MySQL and I'm going to download Community Edition. So MySQL Community Edition is totally free for us to use. Other version of MySQL are paid, but this is the free one. So we're going to use MySQL Community Server. If we talk about database as such, database consists of multiple components. So you have database server. That's where all the data is installed. So we need to, of course, have database server, and database server is one which will be at a server machine, which will maintain your single version of the data. Now, to connect to database server, you need database client. The client helps us to connect to the server. So you need client. Database server can have multiple databases installed. So we'll see that. So now I'm on MySQL community download page. Don't go with innovation. Take any other version. Let's can take 5.0.36. Now, when you select 5.0.36, you can see the version for Windows. You can download the version which suits you. If you're on Mac, you can use Mac. I'm going to say Microsoft Windows. So on this page, you will see Windows zip archive, or you can download the MSI installer. We'll go with MSI installer. MSI installer needs internet to download your software. So it will ask you to create an account, but you can download without creating an account. So you can say, no thanks, just start my download. So it has started downloading the software. Now the download is complete, and just go and double click on the MSI.MSI file. So you'll get an installer window, something like this. So you can say next, select this license agreement, and then you can say complete, custom, typical. I would say go with complete installation will install your database server, your client. It will also set up some sample databases. Say complete and say next, and this will install your database server. There's one more step that you have to keep in mind. At the last step of installation, it will ask you to enter password. So root is the system admin password for MySQL, and you have to give password for root. So remember the root password, you need to write it down and save it somewhere, because that is important for you, that you can easily connect to the database and perform admin related tasks. So click on complete, and it will take some time, maybe about 5 to 10 minutes to install it, and then you will have MySQL installed on your server. Remember the password that you gave to the root. There are 4 important components of MySQL which will get installed along with others. One is database server. This is must. Database server is something that you have to install, because that's where all the data will be stored. Then you need database client. Client is required to connect to the server. So all the request of accessing and even for storing the data has to go through the client. The client sends the data to server. Now we have something called as Workbench. So Workbench is a UI tool which sits on the server, and then you can connect to the server and access. You can send your queries. You can even see the data which is stored in the server. So yes, we need Workbench. All our commands we will send through Workbench. And then finally, sample databases. This is not mandatory. It's optional. And if you have it, it will install additional databases to your database server. So these are the 4 components that you will see while installing MySQL. So now let's get into MySQL. So I'm going to start the Workbench, because as I said, Workbench is a tool that will help us to connect to database server. So if you have used a complete option to install MySQL, you'll be able to see the Workbench. If you have not used complete, if you have used customized, then I hope you have selected Workbench, because Workbench is important and all our commands will go through it. So in your Windows run, you search for Workbench software and then start the Workbench application. So I'm going to do that. So this is how your MySQL Workbench welcome screen looks like. So I'm going to click on my local instance, and I'm going to hit here, and this is going to ask me the root password. So my root password is this. So I have entered my root password, the same password which I have used while installation. I'm going to click on OK. This will start my MySQL Workbench. So this is how your SQL Workbench looks like. You can ignore these commands. These were the commands which I has written earlier. So I'm going to click on SQL Plus. You see, it says new SQL tab. SQL, which stands for Structured Query Language. It's a database language that we use to connect to all RDBMS systems. So all our RDBMS databases understand SQL language. I'm going to create SQL tab. This will open a tab here, and this is where we will give our command. What you see on the left side, these are different databases. So World, System, Shakila, these are 3 databases you will see when you select sample databases. And these 3 are created by me. So I created these databases while working on it. So ignore them. We will create our database from scratch. So I'm going to create my own database called My Employees. So you see, this is to create new SQL tab. And if you scroll to your right, you see here it says create a new schema. Databases are called as schemas. I'm going to create my own schema here. So I'm going to click on this. The cylinder that you see, I'm going to click here, and it opens a UI where I can name my schema. So I'm going to call this as My Employees. So My Employees is my database, and everything else I'll leave it same. And now I'm going to say apply. Now it says, you see, generally the schemas are named as lowercase. So I'm going to say yes, convert into lowercase, and then it opens a UI. And this is the command, create schema My Employee. So if you want to create your own schema, not using UI, but using command, you can say create schema and the schema name. And I'm going to say apply. I'm going to say execute. So you see, create schema My Employees has created My Employees schema. And if you expand, You can see table, views, stored procedure, and functions, and all of them are empty because we have just now created our schema. So a schema is created. The next step would be to create table because the data is stored as part of table, isn't it? So we'll go and create table. So let's go back to PowerPoint and we will design our first table. Come back on presentation. I'm going to create tables. So first table that I'm going to create, we'll call it as employees, and let's see how many rows we will have. So this is my table. I'm going to create employee ID. This will be first column where I'll be adding employee IDs. Then let's say I call this as employee name. Then let's say I'll have employee date of joining. I'll have employee salary, and I'm going to put employee location, city. Now every city where the employee is located will have a city head. So I'm going to say city head. It will have, let's say, a city code. I'm going to say city code, or I'll use location instead of city. I think that would be a better word. I'm going to say location. And then you will have location head who's in charge of that location. Then you will have location code. Then we'll have department. Every department will have department code, and you have department head. So this is the data that I want to store and save in the table. Great. So let's start adding some sample data to it just to see how it looks like. So I'm going to say 1, employee ID 2, 3, 4. So my data is complete, but do you see any problem with this? Problem is, if you look at location, for example, we need information for each of them. So let's say employee ABC belongs to Hyderabad. Great. This looks good. Now you have some information which are related to Hyderabad, like head of each location, the location code, which are very specific to the location. Now, because we are repeating this information multiple times, this information is also repeated. The problem with multiple replication is that, one, it takes space. Obviously, it takes duplicate values will take space. That is a problem. But even bigger problem is maintenance. Now, tomorrow, let's say if department head changes. Let's say Mr. D becomes a department head for Hyderabad. Now, then I don't know how many data I will have to replace. And what if I replace these two, but I miss to replace this? This then brings in your data will have duplicate values, incorrect values. So it's not consistent. Now, remember the second property of data, C for consistency. It is not consistent. It is wrong. So the maintenance of duplicate values becomes a big problem. So not only in database, even when you're dealing with normal programming, we avoid writing same stuff twice because the maintenance of the data becomes a big problem. So what RDBMS says, and that's where the importance of R comes into picture, relationship. It says, in such cases, you create another table and you put that information in another table and link that information to this table. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create another table. Now, let's say this table, we call it employees. So I'm going to call this table as employees. Now, I'll create another table called as location, and I will put all the information related to location there. So I'm going to create table location here, and I'll say location LOC ID, location head, and location code. So I'll say location ID 12301 PN03. So what I've done, I've created a new table here. And this new table has all the information related to the location. And here I'm going to delete it. But now how do I link this employee to this location? Okay, I have put that information in different table. But how do I know which location A belongs to? So this is where I need to create what we call as foreign key. I'll say LOC ID. And this becomes your foreign key. Foreign key is value which is linking one table to another table. So in this case, I'm saying LOC is foreign key, which references location. So this is how you add foreign table. This is called relationship. Now, there are three types of relationships that can exist in database. So we say one-to-one, or you can have one-to-many, or many-to-one. Both means same. So it's like the way you look at it. So it is one-to-one, one-to-many, or many-to-one is same. And then you can have many-to-many relationship. Now, let's understand each of these. One-to-one, for example, if I take here employee name, for example. If I take employee name and salary, employee name and salary. Or I can even look at, let's say, employee name and date of joining, or employee name and employee ID. Any of these you take. So employee name and salary, okay, for example. Now, one employee will have only one salary. Each of the employee will have different set of salaries. So this is called one. From here you have one relationship. And if you look at salary also, if you look at even salary from this side to other side, it will also have one-to-one relationship. One salary will belong to one employee. Email ID. One employee will have one email ID, and one email ID will belong to only one employee. Phone number, for example. One employee will have one phone number, and one phone number belongs to one employee only. You can have more than one email ID, you can have more than one employee phone number, but then in the record, as per the database table, we only talk about your primary phone number and primary email ID. So you'll have only one primary email ID and only one primary phone. So information like this, okay, is called as one-to-one relationship. And in case of one-to-one relationship, we put them in the same table. All the columns that have one-to-one relationship, put them in same table. So that's why you see name, salary, date of joining, if you had email ID, phone number, they all will be in one single table. Next, location. Now, location, so let's say here I put employee name and location. So left side is name and right side is location. Now, one employee will have only one location. One employee will have only one location. You may be working from other location, but on record or for documentation, you will belong to one location only. But you look at other way around. One location will not have only one employees. Location can have multiple employees. Location can have multiple employees. So if you talk about Hyderabad as a location will have multiple employees. So one employee has only one location, but one location has multiple employees. So from employee to location, it is one, but location to employee is many. So this is what we say one to many relationship. Now, if I inverse, if I put location on the left and employee on the right, then it becomes many to one. So that's why I said one to many or many to one is same, just that the way you look, from which direction you look at it. So this is your one to many relationship. What we say in such cases is that put the information in different tables. Put the information in different tables and link them using foreign key. This is what we just did with location. The location too, if you look here, it is one to many relationship. That's what we saw. So we put location in different table and we will link this main table with location table using location ID. So A belongs to Hyderabad. So I'll say 1, 1, 1. And other 3 belongs to Pune, so I'll put 3, 3, 3. So this is your references. Now, department 2. Now, department 2, if you see, it is getting repeated, so it's not a good. We need to put them in different table. Now, what is the relationship between department and employee? Is it one to many or it is many to many? Now, what is many to many? So let's look at example called project. So I might put, so we'll take employee name and project here. So I'm going to put employee name and project. Now, in this case, one employee, will they work on only one project? No, some employees can work on multiple projects also. So you have same employee here, which is working on multiple projects, can have this employee also working on more than one project. So you have one employee working on more than one project. If you look at from project perspective, will one project have only one employee? No, one project will have multiple employees. Correct? So you have multiple employees working on same project. So from both the side in this case is many to many relationship. And in many to many relationship, what we say is we need to create 3 tables. So put information in different tables and link them using a third table. So let's see the example here. We go back. We have not added anything related to project. So let's say we'll talk about project. So I'm going to create another table called project. And in this case, let me put project information. Let's add details for the project. So I'm going to add project ID, project name, head of the project, and see. So this is the project table and these are the columns and the values in this project. Now I have to link these employees to the project code as well. Now here you see one employee can work on more than one project. Here when I say PRJ code and let's say A works for project 1 and 2, every cell should have only one value. I cannot give 1 comma 2. I can only give 1 or 2. So that's the problem here. Now that we have employees and project is many to many relationship, what it says is create third table. In this case, we'll have to create third table to join employee and the project. So I call this as project employee, and here we will have a simple table with 3 columns. So here I'll give ID for this table, which will uniquely identify the values for this table. And I'm going to link PRJ ID with employee ID. I'm going to say EMP ID. And I'll say employee 1 works for project 1 and 3. So I'll put 1 and 3. So this indicates that employee 1 is working on project 1 and 3. So employee ID 1. So employee ID 1 is A, works for project 1 and 3. Employee ID 2 works on project 2. And this will have its own ID to keep track of the values. This is how you will have to deal with values which have many to many relationships. So PRJ code will not point to the project code, but in fact, there is no linkage from employee table. So in this case, employee table will not be linked. In a way, what we are doing is we are breaking many to many relationship into one to many relationship. So we had many to many relationship between employees and project. We can't create tables handling many to many relationships. So we have to introduce third table to break that many to many relationship to make it look like one to many relationship. So now this project ID will go from here till here to this table, and employee ID will go from here to this table. So this is how we handle many to many relationships. So I just said we break it into third table to handle many to many relationships. We design the tables and the columns. Similarly, if you see the data set that we have, this department should also be moved as a different table because the relationship between employees and this department is one to many. So we need to have a separate table. This is assignment for you. You try to create another table for department. Move department to another table, and table will be linked. So we'll have one more column here called department ID, which will then refer to this table. So this is your task that you try on your own. So we have 5 tables to deal with. Let's say you have table 1, and let's say you have table 2, which is location. We have table 3, which is your project. You have table 4, which is your project EMP, and you have project 5, which is your department. So we have 5 tables. Which table should be created first? The table that does not point to any other table. You can refer to this table, but this table should not be dependent on some other table. Now, because if I have to create employees table as first, I have to refer this to LOC ID and department ID. So definitely I cannot create employee first. I have to create either LOC table or department table. LOC table, is it referring to any other table? No, it's not referring to any other table. So the first table to create would be 2. Then you can create a 5 or even 3. 3 is also not referring to any other table. So after 2, you will create 3. After 3, you can create 5 or 4. So let's see, we'll create 4. After 3, we will create 4. Now you have to create 5 because employee table cannot be created without creating department table. So you need to have department table next, and only after that we can create employee table. So next comes your employee table. This is the order in which you have to create the table. So I'm going to create location table in MySQL database. So I go back to MySQL. So I'm on MySQL, and this is where we have to create our table. Our first table, which is location table. So this is the command for creating a table. Create. The SQL commands are case insensitive. So it doesn't matter whether you write all capital or all small, or you can even use mix of lowercase and uppercase. So I'm going to say create table followed by the table name. So I'm going to say location. So generally your table will be plural form. So I'm going to say location. So create table location, and then you have bracket open and close. And within this, we need to add our columns. So let's say I give columns here. We have 4 columns in location table. So you have LOC ID, LOC, LOC head, and LOC code. So these are 4 different columns that we have to add to locations table. So after doing this, we need to give the data type of each of these columns. So this is the official website. On the Google, you can say MySQL data types. The first link that you see, MySQL Developer Zone, this is the official website of MySQL. And you can see these are different data types. You have numeric, date, time, string, and other advanced type like spatial data, JSON, etc. as well. So the location ID will be integer. So primary keys, it is preferred to have integer values because the indexing becomes faster when you have numerical values. Indexing becomes slower when you have character string value. So these are the different numeric data type. So you have float, real, you have integer, small int, decimal, right? So numeric. So I'm going to use integer or int. So this is the data types. Information can be got from here. So based on that, I'm going to create location ID as integer, and this is our primary key. So I'm going to say primary key. If you declare a column as primary key, then you cannot have duplicate values there. Your primary key will have unique values as well as cannot leave LOC ID blank, and then LOC. LOC is going to be our string type. The string, there are two main data types that we use under string, which is char and varchar. Char is used when you have fixed number of values. So let's say mobile number, for example. So mobile numbers will be 10 digits. In that case, it is easy to use char 10. So the SQL will reserve 10 characters for each of the values, but LOC, it can have variable characters. So that's where we use varchar. So we'll use varchar and we can give the size here. So when I say varchar bracket 15, that means I can accept variable number of characters, of course, but maximum of 15 characters. More than 15 is not allowed here. So comma to separate different values. So that's why you put comma here. We are done with adding first column. Now we are done with adding second column. LOC head is the head of department, and this guy, so since it will have name, we can put a varchar here too. And probably we could put 25 to have 25 characters for name. LOC code is also varchar, and let's say here you have fixed number of character. So it is first two character and then next two numbers. So let's say it has fixed 4 number of characters. So I'm going to say char. And since this is the last column of this table, I don't have to give comma. So we have completed adding our table locations. So when you select and you click on this power button at yellow power button, this will execute the code. So here we have create table name locations, and these are the 4 columns that we want to add this table, and I'm going to pay the power button. Green tick indicates that your query has run successful and there is no error. If you had red cross, it means there's something wrong with your query and you have to check the values here. Now see, create table, and it has created, of course, 0 rows affected. Create table will not add any row. So that's why it says 0 rows affected. But how do you know if the table has been created or not? I can say select. Select is the command to read data from the table. So I'm going to say select star from location. And now you select and run this. Green tick means successful, and here you see these are the columns: LOC ID, LOC, LOC HD, LOC code, and no values in them, indicating we have not added any values here. So now let's see, we'll try to add values to this table. So I'm going to use what we call as insert. Now on database, you can perform 4 types of operation. One is C, R, U, and D. Now this is after you create the table. Once you have created the table, these are 4 types of operation. C is for create. So when you want to create a new data, and actually we use insert command to create data. R is to read the data. So we want to read the content of a table, we use select command. So what we just did here was to perform read on table location using select. Then you have U. U is for update. You want to modify an existing value, and we use update command only to update. And then of course to delete, you have to remove existing data So use delete and we use command delete for this. So apart from create table, we will be using 4 other commands: insert, select, update, and delete for adding new data, reading new data, reading the existing data from the table, update existing data to the table, and you delete the existing data from the tables. So these are the commands that we will learn. So how do we insert the data into this table? So we have insert, and insert command is followed by insert into. So you say insert into followed by the table name. So locations is the table name. And now you decide whether you want to add values to all the columns or you want to leave out some column. Let's say I don't have location head at the moment. So I can leave that location head for now, and later I can come back and update the existing data with the location head. So what I'll do for now, I want to add, let's say I will add to all the values. So I don't mention the column names directly, I'll mention the values. So when you mention the value directly and do not mention the column before values, that means that I want to add values to all the columns and in the same order of creation. So first LOC ID, it's an integer, I'll say 1. Now varchar is a location, so it's a text. So I'm going to use, let's say, Hyderabad. Then your location head, I'm going to say Kapil is my location head. Then you have location code, which is again character, 4-digit character. So I put something like this. SQL commands always end with semicolon. So give semicolon. Now I will run this query. So select and execute. So green tick, that means it has run successful, 1 row affected, and you want to see the value, you select run, and you can see location ID 1, Hyderabad, Kapil, and HY02. Now let's see that I want to add another set of values here, and I'll call this as location 2, and this is, say, Pune. And you have Ravi as the head of Pune location, and I'm going to call this as PN03. Let's run it. Successful. Select star from location. You can see the new values here. Now I have to add one more set of values, but in this case, I do not have the name of the location head. So I'm not adding all the values. I do not have the location head details. I'm going to delete it. And this is our 3. Now since we have put LOC ID at primary key, I have to give a unique value. So let's try to do with 2 and see what happens. Purposely left it will throw us, and this location is Mumbai, and the code in this case is, let's say, MB01. So I have only 3 values to add to this table. So here I will mention those 3 columns. So first one is LOC ID. Second one is the LOC that we want to add. And third is the LOC code. We do not have LOC head. So since we do not have all the values, in this case, we have to mention just the column name. And now when I run it, so see, it says duplicate entry at 2. Because we already have data with 2 here, and if you try to add data again with 2, we'll throw error. So I need to change it to third, something unique. And now when I run it, great, green tick, I say select star from location, we have the data here. Now let's say I want to add department head here. So in this case, we have to perform update. Update to update the existing data. I'm going to say update. Update what? Update locations. Then what value you want to update? I want to set LOC head to, say, Sunil. So Sunil is the location head. So I said location set LOC head to Sunil. Now if I run this, then all the values in this table will have Sunil location head, because when I say set location head as Sunil, it doesn't know which specific row to change. So it will change all the rows here. Now we don't want to change all the rows. We only want to change this specific row. So this is where primary key comes handy. Primary key will be unique for each row, right? So I know the primary key for this row is 3. I can say LOC ID equal to 3. You will have only one row with LOC ID 3. So set LOC head Sunil, where LOC ID equal to 3. Now let's run it, and now I'm going to perform run. Now you see the LOC head has been updated here in this table. But let's say you no longer plan to have Mumbai location and you want to delete that record from your database. So this is where delete will be useful. Now delete works with from location and then you say the column that you want to delete. So delete from location, if I run it, entire data will be deleted. So I'll say delete from location where LOCID equal to 3. Then again here you see I'm going to use the primary key because primary key is useful to select unique row, specific row. So I'm going to select this and say run. Green tick, that means it has executed successfully, no error. Now let's go and read the data from the table. You see, Mumbai is gone. Within this one table, we have practiced all the 4 crude applications. We have created this table here. We did not mention which database we are working with. So it has created in employees table here. You see, location. Location got created here. So we missed one point. We missed to indicate which schema you want to use. So by default, employee schema was selected. So everything got added to employee schema. That's why I have to be very careful. I will go and drop the table from employees. So I'm going to drop it and recreate everything. So I'm going to say drop table locations. So what happens? Let's see. Okay, green tick, location's gone. So now if you go to employees and you go to table here, you see location is gone. Now you can see here, this schema, employee schema is appearing in bold. That means this is what we are using right now. So there are 2 options. One option is when you create the table, you mention the schema name. So I can say here my employees dot or MySQL knows that I'm going to use my employees schema. So now when I run this, employees is still bold, but content would have been added to my employees here. You see my location. So first option is you can use the schema name dot table name. In that case, reference will be to the given schema and your current schema will not change. Or if you want to change the current schema to your schema, you can simply say use my employees, use my schema. Now when I select this and run it, employees is no longer bold. In fact, my employees became bold. Now, when you are using use employees, then you don't have to say employees dot. I can delete it. Okay, so we have already created the table, so we don't have to do it. We have to go and run all of this. Since we have used semicolon, MySQL knows which are the different command, and I can select all of them. All of them ran together, and when I say select, you should be able to see all the record here. So yes, so we are done with table 1, which is location. Now we need to add data in the project table. So here I'm going to show you how to do it using UI. So you go to table and say create table. Create table will launch a UI screen, and this is where you can give the table name. So I'm going to say table name as projects and schema is my employees. And then here you have to give the column name. So column name, first one is PRJID. Then I have, so this is your PRJID. By default, PK is selected. This is our primary key. This is a data type. You can select different data type, but of course this is integer. So I leave it as integer. You can select among all of these. There are so many different data types you see. We need integer. So I'm going to select as integer itself, and it is primary key, not null. Then second set of column. So I have PRJ name. So I'm going to say PRJ name. And this is again varchar. You can leave it as 45. And these are the constraints. Primary key, not null, U key for unique, B for binary, Boolean value, 0 or 1. This is unique. You have other constraints. Now we'll go and add the next column, which is PRJ head. Again, varchar. The next column, we will say PRJ code. And here we will select as char. So these are mostly used. Int, varchar, decimal, date, time, blob. These are the most widely used. And of course, you can select others. Here I want to add char. So I'll select char and I'll say char 5. So 5 characters for project code. Now let's say I want to create project name as unique. So I select project name and I go and I select unique here. So it means it is a unique value. You cannot have a duplicate value. Unique will accept null values, but not duplicate values. Okay, you have foreign keys. In case you want to add foreign key, you can add a foreign key here, but then project does not have a foreign key, so there is no need to add foreign keys. So I'm going to say apply now. Say okay. So this is the code that is generated, and I say apply, finish. Okay. Now I'm going to close it. I'm back here. Now you can see project table has been created. So we have two tables created, and now we need to create our third table. Let's go to the presentation to see which is our third table. Now, if you look here, we say table number 4, but again, you see, table number 4 cannot be created until we create employee, because table number 4 references employee table, employee ID column of employee table. So what we did here is absolutely wrong. We cannot create 4 without creating 1. And 1 cannot be created without creating 5, the department table. So department table should come here, and then 1 should come here. And now you can create project EMP table. So this was the mistake we had made. 4 is dependent on employees. Employees is dependent on department. So department should be created first, then employees, and then project. So the next table will be our department table. So let's create one simple department table. So I'm going to use the template from here, and I'm going to change it to departments, and I'm going to say department ID, department name, department head, and department code. And now we will add values to this. I'm going to copy the insert template. I'm going to say insert into departments, and I'm going to say values here, and department 1, department, let's say we put sales, head, let's say we put Kapil, and we'll call this as SAL. Since it is a 5 or 4 digit, right? So I'll say SA. Similarly, we'll add 2 more departments. So I'm going to call this as department ID 2, department ID 3. We'll call this as marketing. We'll call this as product, and we will have same 3 persons as responsible for this department. This is MA02, and we'll call this as PD02. Let's run these. So there is a problem. It says my employees departments doesn't exist. Did we make any mistake here? Let's run the create table first. So table department doesn't exist. So we need to create department first. So run it. The department is now created, and now we will say insert, and data is updated here. After department, we have to create employees. So I'm going to use the same template here. So I'm going to say create table employees, and you have EMP ID, you have name, so I'll say full name, then date of joining. Date of joining is date type, so we will say date. Employee ID, full name, date of joining, salary, and this is going to be float. And next we need to add 2 more columns, and these 2 columns are foreign keys. So one is location ID. So I'm going to say location ID and department ID. So remember, since these are supposed to be our foreign keys, they should be of exactly same type as the corresponding column in the other table. So LOC ID will map to the LOC ID here. So it is int, it has to be int. Similarly, department ID is int, it has to be int. Now these LOC ID and DEP ID columns has to refer to the columns of other table. So we'll say foreign key. Which is foreign key? LOC ID. Now references. References, location, and the column name here is LOC ID. We have one more foreign key, which is DPT ID, DEP ID, references, department. So I need to copy and paste department, and this is DID. So this reference is DID. Last one will not have comma, so we'll delete the comma here. Now our create table employees code is ready. So these are the columns, and these are the 2 foreign key that we have in this table. We will select and run. Green tick, that means we have run it successfully. Now let's go and refresh this. You have all the 4 tables that we created: departments, employees, locations, project. Now the last one is employee location. So I'm going to say create table EMP and this will have ID, and then you have EMP ID, and then you have LOC ID, and all of them are int. Next, we have foreign keys. So we'll copy this and close the bracket here. So here you have EMP ID, LOC ID. So EMP ID references employees table. So I'm going to copy the employee table name. Copying the name, make sure that we do not run into spelling problems or spelling errors. Then LOC ID should refer to locations table, and the column name is LOC ID. Perfect. Let's run it. So all our 4 or 5 rather tables are ready. These are the 5 tables that we spoke about earlier, and our 5 tables are created. Now we need to add some data to employees table. So to add data to employees table, we will have a different approach. Here I'm going to add data in an Excel. We'll create a data in Excel. We will save it, and then we will upload it into MySQL table employees. So let's see how we do it. So in an Excel field, and I'm going to add the data here. So first one is EMP ID. These 2 will refer to other table. Okay, so these are different columns that we need to add to our employees table. Now let's add some dummy data here. I'm going to add here. I've got some names here in the list. So I'm going to drag and see. I've created a customized list with these values. So I've added these names. Are they repeating? So it's possible that you can have person with 2 duplicate names as well. It doesn't have to be unique. So it's all fine. Just to make it different, I have added different initials. Date of joining, let's say we put 21 December 2018, and then you drag it. So this is the way to put the data in Excel, but MySQL has different format of day. So in MySQL, your date format starts with YYY, the cells, and change the date format to match to what we have in MySQL. And date, okay, so this is the format in date. Salary will generate some random value. Let's say salary is between 10,000 to 50,000. So it will generate random values between 10,000 and 15,000. LOC, we have 3 values. Department, we have 3 values. So again, I'm going to say random between 1 and 3, and here too I will say random between 1 and 3, and now and these values we will fix it. So Control C, Control V. The values are fixed. So this is our data in Excel. Now we will save it as CSV file, and then we will see how to import the data into MySQL using command. We will save it, but there is a specific folder from where only we can upload data to MySQL. And that is because of the security aspect. If we do not make our data upload secure, then anybody can upload data from anywhere into our MySQL database. So let's go to MySQL and see which folder is that. So I'm on MySQL, and this is the command. Show variables like secure file print. So this will show you the folder where MySQL allows data to be uploaded. So I'm going to run this command. So see, this is the actual location from where we can upload. So when we save that file as CSV, we have to save it at this location. So I'm going to copy this location, go back to Excel, and now I'll save the data as CSV. I'm on Excel. I'm going to say save as, browse, CSV file, and I'm going to say here my employees data. So it's a CSV file saved at location which is safe to upload into MySQL, and I'm going to say my employees data.csv. I'm going to save it. So data is saved as CSV. Now it's time for us to upload into MySQL. I'm back on MySQL, and here I'm going to say this is the file.csv where we have the data. Now I'm going to write the command to load the file. So we have the command here, load data from file. So we say load data in file followed by the complete path of the file. And we want to load into employees. And these are fields terminated by comma separated files. So we have used comma default delimiter. So you have comma here, and the quotation text is in double quotation, and lines are terminated by /n. And what we are saying is ignore first row. Remember, when we created our data in CSV format, first row is the headers, and we don't want headers. We have our own headers here in this table. That's why I'm saying ignore one row. So from first, one row will be ignored. Now when I run this command, it should upload the data if everything is fine. There's something wrong here. It says table myemployees.myemployees doesn't exist. My employees is a schema. Table name is employees. So I'm going to change it to employees. So table name is employees. Table name is not my employees. So that's the mistake we had made. Now we'll run it again. Foreign key constraint. So there is a foreign key constraint here. We are probably not able to meet the foreign key constraint. And let's see. LOC references location. So our data in Excel, let's see the Excel data. In Excel, LOC value ranges from 1 to 3 and department ranges from 1 to 3. Let's go back and see the data. So I'm going to say select star from locations and select star from department, just to make sure that we have the pre-existing values. Now you see, since those are foreign keys, okay, so value that we are using in employees have to be there in the original table. So in location, we have only 1 and 2. We don't have 3. That's the problem. Don't have. So what I'll do, we will add Mumbai location again. So department is all fine. Location does not have the third, value referencing the third location. So let's go and add Mumbai. So Mumbai we had added and then we'll delete it again. Let's go ahead and add Mumbai location. I'm going to run this. Mumbai is located. Mumbai location is created now. And now when I say load table, data will be there without any problem. So 10 rows affected, 0 rows deleted, 0 skipped. That means all 10 rows have been added. And if you want to see them, we can say select star from employees. Let's go ahead and run it. Perfect. All the data have been added. Now let's say I want to see all the values from employees. So I'm going to say select star from employees. So now I want to display the values from employees with specific columns. So let's say I want employee ID. So I'll say EMP ID. I want full name. So I'll say full name. I want date of joining. So I'll say date of joining, and we'll say salary. We want salary, and instead of LOC ID, I want the location name. So if you want location name, we need to know the column name here. So LOC is the column name. So I'm going to say LOC, and also I want to know the department name. So I'll run department. So this will give us DEPT. So we have select. All these values should come from employees table, and these two should come from two different tables. So now I'm going to say from. Now from, obviously we don't have to put comma here. Department, from, you have employees. So first 4 columns should come from employees. So I'm saying column employees. Now I will give a alias as A. So column employees is referred as A. Now LOC should come from location. So location, and I'll refer this as, let's say, B. And then you have from department, and I'll refer this as C. So you have employees, location, department. Now I have to link employees to location. So I'm going to say where A dot A is employee. So A dot our LOC ID should be equal to B dot LOC ID. I need to know the exact column name. So it's always better to go and check before we enter the value. And A dot dep ID is equal to C dot, let's see the department's name here. It is DID. So dep ID equal to DID. That's it. Let's run this query. Now you see, it has clubbed the data from 3 different tables. So this is what I said, relational database. Okay, you can link, you can club data from multiple tables. So what we just did is we connected 3 tables together. We connected employees and locations and department, and we fetched the data from these 3 tables. So now it says that employee Kapil works with salary 17,727 based in location Pune and belongs to department sales. Similarly, Virat belongs to department product and he's based in Hyderabad. So we have come to end of this tutorial on SQL. Here we understood what database is, why do we have to create database. We spoke about RDBMS, and we also saw how to install MySQL database. And then we took an example of handling employees data. We saw the relationship. We saw one-to-one, one-to-many, many-to-one, and many-to-many relationships. Then based on that, we created table in our databases. We added values, and we also saw how to update and delete the existing value from the table. And then we saw how to read the data from the table using SQL. So with that, we come to end of this mini tutorial, and we will see you some other time. Thank you.